Hi, this is Kate from Generate Magic, and today I want to talk about resentment, anger and resentment. And we all know that it's not good for us to hang on to it, but how do you actually go about getting rid of it? And for me, I was noticing this pattern. I don't know if anybody else has experienced this, where I was actually having arguments in my head with people, and sometimes it would be kind of about things that happened from the past, and sometimes it would be things that even hadn't even happened. It would just be like these imaginary conversations, but I would get so worked up over it that I would actually like get a headache, like my jaw would start to hurt and my heart would start racing. And it was all coming from this place of like victimhood and feeling like this person had done something really terrible to me. And finally, I was getting the chance to voice everything that they had done and put them in their place. And of course, none of this is doing anything to the other person. All it's doing is in this case, all it was doing was hurting myself by giving me the headache and the sore jaw. And so we've heard tons of quotes about anger and resentment and how it's like drinking poison and how it's all about forgiving the other person, right? And I want to talk about something that I think is kind of one step above forgiveness. Not that there's anything wrong with forgiveness. I think it's definitely a step in the right direction. It's certainly better than hanging on to that anger and resentment. But I think forgiveness still comes from the perspective of this person did something really terrible to me. And so now I have to forgive them. And so, in one sense, it kind of puts the burden on you. And in another sense, there's still kind of this lingering sense, right? That there was something wrong that happened, but you're just going to do your best, right, to be the higher person and and put it all behind you. And so what I like to do is this process. It's basically where you revise the events. And in the manifestation community, there's been a lot of talk about it comes from a Neville Goddard teaching about the pruning shears of revision. And it's essentially taking something that happened in the past and rewriting it the way you would have liked it to happen. And some people, I think, take this a little bit too far, and they do it with everything. Like they maybe had a little argument with somebody that day, and or an exchange with somebody where they didn't like how it went. So then at the end of the day, they go back and rewrite it the way they would have liked it to happen. And sure, that's if it works for you, then definitely keep on doing it. But for me, that's never really kind of gotten to the root of the issue. And I've never personally found rewriting the events to be very beneficial for me. But but I think all of this comes down to perspective, right? And how we're interpreting what happens. And so it's not actually about what happened, but rather how we're viewing it. And so what I found to be very powerful is I will, whatever it is that's causing these feelings of resentment, I'll pick an event. And in some cases, right, there could be a lot of events that's causing you to feel resentful towards a certain person, but just pick one event and something that feels like it really kind of gets you at your core. And then what you're going to do is you're not going to change what happened, but what you are going to do is you're going to change your perspective around what happened. And so you're going to write about all the ways that this actually benefited you. And this was actually leading you along the path to being the person, the best version of yourself. And so even if it was something really terrible that this person did, you can, maybe it gave you more compassion and more empathy for other people that have been through that exact same experience. And sometimes people even, like for instance, with abuse, sometimes people go on to help other people that have been through the abuse. And they're able, because they've both been through the same experience, they're able to have that common bond and that connection that maybe somebody who hadn't been through that experience wouldn't really be able to help the other person in the same way or connect with the other person at the same level. So that's just one example. And I found that when I do this, usually there's something, whatever event is causing me to feel anger or resentment, usually there's something deeper underneath it. And not necessarily deeper, but something that goes back farther. Usually something in childhood, because that's where a lot of this stuff starts, right? And so I have a memory of in middle school. Middle school was a very difficult time for me, as I'm sure it was for a lot of people. So there was this boy that I really had this big crush on in middle school. And because it was middle school and because it was a small school, like everybody knew that I liked this particular person. And and he gave no, he was at least friendly to me. He wasn't mean to me, but he gave no signs of having any interest in me whatsoever as anything more than a casual acquaintance. And on top of that, I just was not considered popular. I wasn't considered attractive. I didn't view myself in those ways. And so the chances in my mind, at least, and probably everybody else's mind too, of me and this individual getting together were very slim. And so then one day, one of my classmates gave me a letter, and it was folded up like really neatly, like trying to think of the best way to describe it. It was folded up kind of like this origami type pattern. And like in middle school, we would often kind of exchange notes like that, where it's all kind of like folded up. And then on the outside it said, well, I'm trying to remember the exact details, but anyway, it gave this kind of, even though I knew deep down it probably wasn't really from him, I still kind of got this feeling of excitement when I received this letter. And so it said, when I unfolded it, it said, to Kate from Tommy, that was the boy's name. It said, will you go out with me? Check yes or no. And again, even though kind of my rational or logical mind was saying, yeah, this probably isn't really true. And there was another part of me that was like really excited and really just ecstatic. And I think it just showed on my face. And so then, of course, it wasn't from him. It was somebody else kind of playing a joke on me. And this was in the school cafeteria. And so everybody was watching me like open this letter, and everybody kind of witnessed my expressions of excitement as I was opening this letter. And so then everybody was making fun of me afterwards and kind of emulating these feelings, these expressions of excitement and everything. And this really kind of had a lasting effect on me. Don't get my hopes up too much. And true love, of course, we all know in middle school it's not really true love. But this was the message that I got, that true love really isn't for me. And yeah, just all these messages that came out of it. And also just this kind of feeling too of humiliation, of being the butt of everybody's joke. And I better not show too much excitement, right? Because then I'm just going to get the rug pulled out from under me, and on top of it, I'm going to get humiliated because of it. And so then in these inner conversations, right, that I was having in my head, where I was kind of describing, I would get really worked up and get really angry. That was kind of at the root of it, was this pride, this because that really kind of that event really kind of got to my pride, and it was kind of like this determination, right, of, oh, I'll show them. I'm never going to let this happen to me again. And this kind of, I don't know, it's hard to describe, but this kind of like pop diva attitude, where you see all these songs where the girl, she gets like broken up with, or the man cheats on her, and then she's like, yeah, I'm going to show you. And so, by dumping your ass. And so it was that kind of energy. And these inner scenes that I was kind of playing out in my mind. And so anyway, when I was revising the scene, I was just, yeah, I was kind of writing out all the ways, all the reasons that I was glad that it happened. And so for one, it makes a really good story, and it actually inspired some fiction of mine as well. And then on top of that, it definitely, yeah, just gives me compassion and empathy, like I was saying before, for other people that have, yeah, I mean, pretty much everybody has been humiliated at some point or has been rejected at some point. And but especially for young people, so I was a teacher for several years, and so just kind of understanding everything that you go through as a young person, and when some kid lashes out at you, it's never personal. It's all this kind of like buildup of whatever they're going through at the time, and and so yeah, and to also kind of know what it's like just to kind of guard your heart and to be kind of in that state of, yeah, I'm just not going to let it happen to me again. I'm not going to open my heart up again, which many people, both men and women, go through. And yeah, and then on top of that, it just showed I can, no matter, trust me, I know many people have been through things far worse than that. I've been through things far worse than that, but that was just an example that happened to come to mind. But just kind of going through these experiences kind of shows us, yeah, like nothing is going to bring me down, and specifically the opinions of others, right? Like despite humiliation and rejection and people just saying terrible things to you, it doesn't change who you are deep down at your core. And so I think that's something very important to recognize as well. And it's not that we have to have these experiences, but being able to interpret it through this lens allows us really to take back our power and to see that we're not victims, that we're not victims of circumstance, we're not victims of our own thoughts as well. Because for a long time, I was thinking I'm just doomed to always kind of play out these scenes in my head. And I think anybody that struggles with depression or with anxiety, I think a lot of times people feel the same way. And especially when a doctor says that there's no cure for it, that sure, maybe you can take a pill that will help you to feel better in the short term, but you're always going to struggle with these thoughts and these feelings for the rest of your life. I think there's definitely a feeling that can be very burdensome around that. And to really step free of that and to say, no, we don't have to keep living out that reality. We can choose a new reality for ourselves. We can choose a reality where we feel empowered, where we feel in charge, and where we feel, yeah, just light and free and joyful, and just free to be whoever we want to be and to have the experience that we're really craving deep down inside. And that I think is a very empowering point. And so I want to encourage you to really try this out the next time you're you're experiencing something, and especially like I said, you don't want to do this with every little thing that happens. And we all go through ups and downs, right? And most of it is not going to really affect us in the long term. But if there's something where it feels like it's just like a recurring pattern, and especially if it's the feeling of anger or resentment that you're holding towards a certain person or an old friend or a family member where you just can't let go of it, to try this and please let me know how it goes. So thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day.